last class, and he said that they do follow some similar rules to what we see in the case of real numbers, in the sense that you can add two complex numbers and they're commutative in a commutative manner, meaning whether you have a complex number z1 simple whether you have z1 plus z2, two complex numbers, they would yield you the same result as if you were to do them in the opposite order. No points for guessing. And when we add them and we say that their real parts get added together and their complex parts they also get added together. So they kind of maintain that integrity. Real goes with real, imaginary goes with imaginary. So that's one part of it. We also talked about the associative rule in this. Then we also talked about additive identity. So some number which is 0 times 0 plus 0 times I gives you the same number z. So what we say is that a complex number 0, or 0 can also be imagined to be a complex number with the imaginary and both the real parts being 0 individually, and that can be added to any complex number to yield the same number itself. So this 0 is a additive identity, you could say. Then we talked about what we call as the additive inverse. So a number which you when add to a complex number gives you a 0. So that means this is the additive inverse of it. So if z were to be something like a plus ib, then its z1 would be negative of z, and that would be negative of a plus ib by just replacing the value of z, and that's like minus a minus ib. So additive inverse of any complex number is a number which has the same you could say the real and imaginary number components are having reverse signs. Basically that's what the additive inverse of any complex number is. Yeah, now I think that pretty much is like what you do in a we already know how we can add two complex numbers, right? And coming to subtraction, it is not much different. It's just that what you would notice is in the case of subtraction, of complex numbers, what you would notice is that it's actually the same as addition, except that if you do sub z1 minus z2, what we are basically saying is that z1 plus the additive inverse of the complex number z2 is added to it. So if let's say you have z1 as a1 plus I times b1, that's your first complex number, and z2 is a2 plus I times b2, then ultimately what z1 minus z2 stands for is a1 plus I times b1 plus, or you could simply say that plus of additive inverse of any number z2 would be the real and the components with their sign reversed. You could either do that, so that allows us to, what you can say is that you can club the imaginary real parts together and the imaginary parts together like this. and which is pretty much like even explanatory as well. Like if you were to subtract them, you would only subtract the real parts together and the imaginary parts together, and that's the exact same result you would get in that case as well. You won't find anything like you cannot do a commutative property in subtraction, much like you cannot do it in real numbers also. The same goes with the associative property as well. You can't do that, right? So subtraction, basically we need to be familiar with how we can subtract multiple complex numbers like that, and there could be questions around it, simple questions around it, or you would most of the time use them in much complex operations where subtraction is one of the operations involved. Now coming to what we have is the next operation, which is multiplication. So multiplication is, say if you decide to multiply Z1 with Z2, something like that. So ultimately what happens when you do something like that? So that can be understood if you take an example of, let's say Z1 is A1 plus I times B1 and Z2 is A2 plus iota B of 2, and when you do Z1 into Z2, it's like saying A1 plus I times B1 times A2 plus I times B2. So when you're doing, you just have to multiply and it just goes with the same flow, multiplying this with the entire thing and then multiplying this with the entire thing. So what you get is, if you do the product, you get A1 into A2, like this, and then by this you would get I times A1 B2, and when you do these two together, what you get is I times A2 B1, and when you do these two together, what you get is I square B1 B2. Yeah, so in the end what you get is, this actually is I square is equal to negative of 1, and that makes this part as real also, and this is also real. These two are imaginary parts. So what we can do is basically club them together, A1 A2 minus B1 B2 plus A1 B2 plus A2 B1 times I. So that means what is actually happening is, if you look closely, when you're doing a product of two complex numbers, the real part is actually the difference of these values. So sometimes you can write it as A1 instead of A1. I mean, we kind of can generalize, even though it's not too big of a deal. You can figure this one out easily. So we call it as real part of Z1 times real part of Z2 minus real or imaginary part of Z1 into imaginary part of Z2. That's your real part of the product, because ultimately when you're doing a product, you're also, in this case, getting a complex number. It's quite possible that in some cases you may not get it, the product may not be a complex number, as you can tell if this actually becomes 0. If this imaginary part somehow becomes 0, it depends on the value of A1 and A2, A1, A2, B1, B2. If that happens, then it may so happen that this product, this value of imaginary part becomes equal. So it's not always the case that the product of two complex number will always give you a complex number. It could be a real value as well. But here in this case, you can put this one again as real of Z1 times imaginary of Z2 plus real of Z2 times imaginary of Z1. And that's more like a result which you need not try and memorize, but it's not too difficult. The only thing to look at is be wary of the signs. Since we have taken all positive signs here in this case, you still get a negative here, and for the reason that both of them are imaginary parts, so when you do a product of the two, that I square will give you a negative sign. Rest everything keeps the sign of whatever is with the value of a1, b1, b2 and a2. So if all of, yeah, so if all of them are positive, so except for this, everything would be positive. But in case, some of the values could be negative. Say for example, I could take an example like this. Z1 is maybe 2 plus 3i, that's 1, and Z2 is 4 plus 4i, that's 2. So that in this case, Z1, Z2 becomes not too biggie, the product of the two, which is 8, minus the product of the two, which is 12. That's the real part of it from here, plus this into this and this into this. So 8 plus 12 times I, meaning minus 4 plus 20i. That's your product. If we had another example, if we take another example, Z1 is equals to 2. Let's say I take the imaginary part as negative, and Z2 in this case, let's say 4 plus 5i, which is positive. Now in this case, if we do Z1, Z1, the real part would be 8 minus of this. So minus of 15 would be a positive 15. Yeah? Plus you do the product, which is 10, and you do the product, which is minus 12 times I. So that gives you a 23 minus 2 times I. That's the final value for the product as well. So that's how you perform the multiplication operation. Now, properties of multiplication are also there. Multiplication also kind of follows similar rules to addition, if you know what I'm talking about. Meaning which that product of two complex numbers is commutative. Whether you do the product taking first, one of them as, the first one, in any order, it would remain the same. And there are proofs for it also. You can take any two complex number, general complex number, or even any specific complex number, you would come to this conclusion. Something, like just to take an example, that's one. That's 2. So Z1 into Z2 would be using the same rule, A1 A2 minus B1 B2 plus A1 B2 plus B A2 B1 times I. That's your product. And you can tell, like, whether you take this one first, which is Z2 first, the only thing which would change is the order here, everywhere. But the value still would be same. They would still remain in the same term. So the same value you would be getting when you do Z2 C1. Like A2 A1 minus B2 B1 plus A2 B1, the first term would come first, and A1 B2, and which is pretty much like the same, both the values. So that's one. And also they follow associative property, meaning that you can multiply three complex numbers together and in any order as you please. That would still give you the same result. And that also means that you can multiply any number of complex numbers together. So z1 into z2 z3 is the same as z1 z2 times z3. That's also a property. Now the other is what we call as the multiplicative identity, or when you multiply z with a number, some number, let's say z1, it still gives you the same complex number z. So when you multiply z with another complex number and it gives you the value as the same, so what is the value of z1? You can tell it is actually z1 comes out to be 1 plus 0 times I, or 1 is the multiplicative identity even in this case. Yani, like when you have a 0 as an imaginary value, that means it's a real number 1. And you can even prove this value, right? So what you have is you can take z as a plus I times b. And let's say z1 is, we don't know what z1 is, we haven't concluded this yet. So let's say z1 is a1 plus I times b1. And what we are saying is the product of z with z1, which is like a plus I times b, the product with a1 plus I times b1 should give you the same value a plus I times b. So if you do this product, what you get is a times a1 minus b times b1 plus a b1 plus b a1 equals to a plus I times b. Now, if you look at and you compare two complex numbers, we know that two complex numbers are only, can only be equal when the real and imaginary parts are equal. That means so a1 minus b1 is actually equal to a. That's one. And using the second one, I can say that a b1 plus b a1 equals to b. That's 2. Now if we look at what comes out as a1 and b1 is something we can solve from this. So if I were to, maybe if I were to calculate the value of a1, I need to get rid of b1, or I can use an elimination method basically. So that means that I can multiply this on both sides with a value which is a, so that it becomes a b b1, and here also, so that becomes a square, and I can multiply this with b, so that it becomes a b b1, which is going to be the same as this, and this becomes b square. So meaning which, and then I can add them. So what I get is in that case I get a square. From this value I can get a square into a1, and from this one I get b square into a1 should be equal to a square plus b square, meaning a square plus b square times a1 equals to a square plus b square, meaning a1 comes out to be a value a square plus b square over a square plus b square, which is a value 1, and that is what we said. Now coming to the value of b1, how can I compute the value of b1? Is just substituting a1 in one of them and then solving for it. So let's take equation 1 and substitute value of a1 in it, है ना, the one which we got. So 1, basically the value 1. So that's the first equation. So it comes out to be a into 1 minus b into b1 equals, now this is something which we multiplied later. So earlier it was a only, right? That was the original equation. And this a would get cancelled out, and what we get is negative b of b1 is a 0. And since this complex number doesn't have a b as 0, we can't take this b as 0, so the only possibility is getting a b1 value as 0. So this gives us a value of b1 as 0. So what we can conclude is that z1, which is 1 plus 0i, or a number 1, is also a multiplicative identity in the case of complex numbers, which is also true for real numbers as well. Yeah? So not that these proofs are, must or something they could ask, but proving something is important, because as I told you, we would be doing that a lot more in grades here on, and how we address it and the way we address it becomes important. So that was multiplicative identity for you. Yeah. This one. Okay. Oh, because when we compare two complex numbers, we can only compare their real parts together and the imaginary parts together. Remember? If z1 is actually equal to z2, then the real part of z1 is equal to real part of z2, and imaginary part of z1 is equal to imaginary part of z2. Then only we can, this is the only thing which we can talk about when we say two complex numbers are equal, right? That's something we have done earlier, I believe. Yeah, we are not okay. So when we are saying I times b1, comparing the I times some part, so I is an iota, it's a symbol. All it doesn't have, it doesn't, it's like something times I equals to something times I again. So I is common in both the sides. So we don't necessarily take I1 when we are doing a comparison. We're just comparing what is the coefficient of the imaginary term on both the sides. Yeah. So I think I could have written this here. So we're kind of comparing the real parts here and the imaginary parts here. Now, one bit more from here is that we talked about multiplicative identity. Then we also know about what we have, what we call as multiplicative inverse. We always used to say about real numbers that, if a real number is, let's say, x, then its multiplicative inverse is 1 over x, because the product of the two comes out to be 1. That's what we call as a multiplicative inverse. Same way, in the case of complex numbers, for every complex number z, there must be some complex number z1, and I'm not going to write it like 1 over z yet. I'm just simply writing it like as a product. So the product of the two should give you a value 1. That is what multiplicative inverse should be. The product of a number and its multiplicative inverse should give us a z. So what happens in such a case is that, let's say if z is your number, again we can take a plus I times b. And z1 is another number, a1 plus I times b1. Now the whole point is to find the value of a and b much like the way we have done it for in this case. It's just that maybe the process might be a little different. So still what I would do is z times z1 should give me a value 1, which in this case was z times z1 is giving you a value z. Here we want to say what is that number z1 which when multiplied by z gives you a value 1. So the product, I can still use the same product over here, that shouldn't matter, and that would give me a times a1, and I'm going to use a little b times b1, b1b plus a b1 plus a1b times I, and that value is 1, or 1 plus 0 times I can write it. 1 can always be written as 0 times I. And now I can compare the real and imaginary parts again, because there is an equality in between. So that gives me, yep, that would be 1. That's my equation 1. And ab1 plus a1b gives you a 0. That's your equation 2. And what we need to solve for is, we're looking for what is z1. So that means I need to solve for a1 and b1 again. So at least here I have a 0 over here, so I can transpose, and that makes it easier. That means I can say that b1a is nothing but a1b, negative. That gives me a b1 as negative a1b over a. And I can use this value and substitute over here, and this value can be substituted in here, and what I get, a times a1 minus with this value, which is negative a1b over a times b. And that gives you, or not here, in the line below that, in here, equals to 1, and that gives me a value. This negative would be out and would give you a positive value. And if you see that there is a over here, so I can times both the sides by a, like multiply both, so that I can get rid of the denominator. So I get a square into a1 plus, this is b into b, which is b square into a1 again, and this a would get cancelled with the one which is outside, and that gives you a. So that allows you to get a value of a1 as a over a square plus b square. That's the value of a. And with that, what you get as b here is minus, since you get a, so I can write it as a over a square plus b square in place of a1, and times b over a, right? That's the value which you would get. This would get cancelled, and what you get is negative b over a square plus b square. So with that, what we get as a value of the complex number z1 is in terms of your complex number set. If someone asks you what is the multiplicative inverse of a certain complex number, they would give you the value of z and not z1. This is something you need to find out. So with this, I am able to get the value of z1 in terms of a and b, which is what I would be given with. So that becomes a1, which is a over a square plus b square, and negative bi over a square plus b square. So what happens if you look at is, in this case, the multiplicative inverse of a complex number, kind of has, a and b the imaginary part has a symbol which is opposite. At the same time it is divided by some, sum of the real and the imaginary part when you square them up. So it's kind of a standard result if you ask me. Somebody could ask you, find the reciprocal of a particular thing. This is okay. By the way, multiplicative inverse is something we also write it as z of a multiplicative inverse of a number is also written as z raised to the power minus 1, something like this, and that gives you 1. So the value which you get here is also equivalent to the inverse, which can also be represented like this, and which is also what we call as the multiplicative inverse or reciprocal or multiplicative inverse, or the negative exponent of the number. They are all the same values, and that value is a over the sum of the squares of the two minus bi over the sum of the squares of the two. Does that make sense? Great. So I think yeah, in a lot of cases you can use it. Yeah, pretty much this can be used, like in a lot of scenarios where you would be given complex expressions wherein you have negative exponent of some number which is being used in it. So if you know that complex number, you can use this result to write the negative exponent of it easily. Can be. Nope. You do not. All right. Again, distributive property, as you can tell, would work here as well. Distributive property, product of one number, complex number with the sum of two and the difference of the two, right? That would also work over here. Now coming, I think that's pretty much what you have in multiplication. Let me just check quickly in case there is any other property which I need to fill in. But other than that, I think that sums up the product of it. And what you have beyond this is the division. So when you divide two complex numbers, I think we have done this commutative. Yep, correct. Now comes the division of it. So division of complex numbers, let's say when you say z1 divide by z2, something like this. So in division, again, there are not too many properties as such, like, as you know, division is kind of like it follows what you do for subtraction. There is nothing commutative about division, no association and stuff like that. So simply we need to understand what division is. Division in this case, when you divide two complex numbers, is actually saying that you multiply the complex number with its multiplicative inverse. Basically, this is the multiplicative inverse of z2, or you could say that z1 into z2 raised to the power minus 1. Meaning, if you know a complex number, if you're given a complex number, you can easily find its multiplicative inverse, which is 1 over x value, So this value actually, z1 is actually the 1 over x value of z as well. If you were to do 1 over x, 1 over z value of this, you would still get the same. And how? That is something we'll see. So let's say if you're given z as a plus I times b, okay? So 1 over z is nothing but 1 over a plus I times b, okay? So when you're given something like this, the way to express this in the form of a complex number is to actually get rid of the complex part from the denominator. Just like in the case of irrational numbers, we used to get rid of the irrational by multiplying with its, what do you call it, rationalizing factor. Similarly here, you can get rid of this value from the denominator by multiplying with a factor like this and dividing it with the factors like this as well. You see the difference? And what it gives you is, in the numerator you get a minus I times b, and in the denominator, do you think you can find out the product of the two? A square minus I times b whole square, isn't it? And if you do that, what will you get? Minus I square b square. Isn't it? And that's exactly the same value over here. How? Denominator, I've just taken it as common over here. I can split it into two. If I need to write it in a plus ib form, I can write it as a, which is real part, minus I times b over a square plus b square. You know, I can get rid of this. Or I could put it around both. And that exactly is the same. Meaning 1 over z, or the reciprocal of a complex number, is actually its multiplicative inverse, which is also basically 1 over z is also the same as z raised to the power minus 1. Yeah. Oh, भाई आपने जब आपने a plus b और a minus b किया, तो I would put the whole thing in together, right? I'm not going to leave the I out. So, and when you do a square of it, it's I times b whole square. That means it is the square of I as well as the square of b. And that is what I would write over here. And the negative sign is already over there, so I'm just carrying the same stuff. And in the next step, I square can be replaced with minus 1. And that minus 1, yeah. So now coming to the division, when you are dividing two complex numbers, basically it's like saying multiply the number with the reciprocal of the second number. So the reciprocal of the second number, if this is z2, whatever be its value, is nothing but the value which we have found like this, or the multiplicative inverse. So essentially what happens is, this is a complex number which is expressed in this form. Again, this is a complex form of a complex number, and you just have to simply do the product of the two. Meaning, we can take an example. It becomes a little more more elaborate in terms of looking at values. So let's say z1 is again a1 plus I times b1, and z2 is a2 plus I times b2. Okay, so when we are doing z1 into z2, so I need to find what is z2 raised to the power minus 1, and that is something I know from here would be a2 minus I times b2 over a2 square plus b2 square. Tell me yeah or nay if you can understand that. Okay, so once you are able to find that out, I can do this product easily. Product is something I know how to do. z1 into z2 raised to the power minus 1 is a1 plus I times b1 into a2 minus I times b2 over a2 square plus b2 square. The denominator is completely a real value, so I don't need to worry about it. all I need to do is multiply the two things in the numerator, and that would give me a1, a2. Since there is a negative sign over here, so that would give me b1, b2 as positive, if you remember. Plus a1 times b2 would be a negative value, and a2 times b1 would be positive. So I'll write a2 b1 first minus a1 b2 second times I, because there's an imaginary part, and over a2 square plus b2 square. And this is not something you need to remember, nothing to remember about. But if you're given a problem like that, you can still use this as a standard result and do a product, which is again done using a result which we've done earlier, like, product of real parts minus the product of imaginary parts plus the product of interchanging the two added together times I. That's what you got from here, and the denominator is actually a carry forward from the previous step. Make sense? So आज क्या है, हमारा काम यही रखते हैं, ऑपरेशंस ऑन, जो ऑपरेशंस हैं इनसे रिलेटेड मैं आपको क्वेश्चंस दूंगा, लाइक हाउ यू कैन डू मल्टीप्लिकेशन, प्रैक्टिस ऑफ एडिशन, सब्ट्रैक्शन, मल्टीप्लिकेशन, conjugate, sorry, not, we haven't done conjugates, we'll do that in the next step. एक दो चीजें हैं जो इसमें और है important, but इससे related मैं आपको questions दे दूंगा आज. ठीक है जी? Any doubts? Any questions about this? Yeah, I can understand if you're doing it for the first time, then it can be a little overwhelming. But I think just getting familiarized is a big step forward, and that would make it much like almost like as if you try and relate it, relate it with real numbers. Is it different? How different it is? Okay, we talked about rationalizing, in real numbers, irrational numbers. In the same way, when you have a number which is a 1 over complex number, something like this, you can't really put a value to it. So the way out is to kind of present it in a form which is much more relatable, which is a plus ib. So always, whenever you have a 1 over some a plus ib form, you can't just leave it like this. Try and put it into a form which gives you some value like a1 plus ib1. And for that you need to multiply it with this, the kind of like I'm not using that specific word which we call over here, which basically is when you have the same real part and the negative as the imaginary part, and there is a term for it which we call as conjugate. So always, in order to remove this complex part from the denominator, we multiply with its conjugate, which is a minus ib. We'll cover that one in the next class. Okay. So yes, try and relate as much as possible, and you'll be through. You'll be, learning. You already have learned half of it actually now. So that would be fun, I guess. Okay. Or quick questions? Yeah, it is interesting. It is interesting. I mean, something beyond what we have already been doing for so long, and finding out complex numbers in whole new world. And I don't know what, I haven't found out what is its application in particular application if you've taken finance, economics, but I'll try and see if I can find a few different areas where there might be a relevance of it. But at least quadratic numbers, quadratic equations where negative roots are not possible. So that's where something you have already related. But in physics, in science, they do have a wide application for sure. Okay? Great. Let's leave it at that today, and I'll see you in the next class. Let me confirm in a bit, okay? I'll drop you a message about it.